Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
I always imagined my bridal shower would feel like a warm hug, like stepping into a room filled with people who were genuinely happy to see me happy. I didn't need extravagance, just closeness. No big venue, no over-the-top themes, just laughter, hugs, and maybe some stories from childhood that would make us cry and laugh at the same time. And, honestly, for the first hour, that's exactly what it was. The backyard was strung with soft white lights. The food was homemade, courtesy of Aunt Debbie and her famous spinach dip, and my maid of honor, my best friend Jamie, had made little hand-lettered name tags for everyone, just like I'd wanted. There were 70 guests, give or take, most of them women who had known me since I was knee-high and covered in popsicle juice. I'd worn a simple pale pink sundress and let my hair go natural, loose waves that made me look a little like our mom in old photos. It felt right. Familiar. Then came the moment, the one that rerouted the whole day like a train switching tracks at the last second. I had just unwrapped the fourth or fifth present, a handmade recipe book filled with messages from family friends, and I was already tearing up when I heard the sound of latex stretching and popping. Everyone turned. The kind of turn people make when they smell a fire or hear glass shatter. Lauren walked in holding a balloon the size of a beach ball, metallic and glossy and obnoxiously pink, with the words, "It's a girl," plastered across it in glittery letters so large they could have been read from the moon. I swear, even the birds went quiet. "Oh my God," someone gasped. "My baby girl wanted to come celebrate too." Lauren chirped, as if this whole event had been for her the entire time. A ripple of laughter, applause, a few women standing to hug her, and in seconds, the room, my room, shifted like it had been spun around. I just sat there, tissue paper still in my hands, ribbon dangling from my wrist, watching as everyone suddenly gathered around Lauren like she'd just floated down from heaven. She didn't ask. She didn't check. She didn't even wait for the gift portion to be done. She just showed up, 9 weeks pregnant, and already hungry for center stage, like this baby was a spotlight she couldn't wait to shove into everyone's eyes. I glanced over at Jamie. She looked like she wanted to punch someone. Aunt Debbie muttered, "Of all the damn nerve," and disappeared into the kitchen. But most people? They clapped. They congratulated. They forgot. And I mean immediately. The next 20 minutes were a blur of baby talk, gender predictions, questions about names, and belly rubs. Lauren drank it all in like it was champagne, like she was high on the attention, cheeks glowing, hand resting dramatically on her barely there bump, as if she were 9 months deep and ready to pop. I sat back, trying not to cry, trying not to make a scene because the last thing I wanted was for me to look like the dramatic one. But the truth? It was like watching someone open your birthday presents while you stood there holding the cake. After a while, Jamie rang a tiny bell and tried to bring the group back to the scheduled game. Guess that love song, but the energy had shifted. People were only half listening. Some were still asking Lauren about her due date and whether she was going to do a natural birth or go for the epidural. It was like I was a side dish at my own feast. Still, I smiled. Still, I posed for photos. Still, I clapped when someone guessed, at last, by Etta James. I was trying to be good, trying to be the better sister, the gracious bride. But then dessert came. A strawberry shortcake tower I'd been dreaming about for months, my grandmother's old recipe, made by hand with real whipped cream and sweet biscuit layers that melted in your mouth. Jamie brought it out with candles shaped like rings and a little sign that said, "Sweetest bride-to-be." For 1 second, the attention came back to me. People clapped again. That's when Lauren leaned across the table, right into my ear, her eyes shiny like she'd just won something no one else knew they were competing for. I mean, she whispered, "Everyone cares more about this anyway, right?" I didn't blink. Didn't flinch. I just looked at her. And then I smiled. A soft, deliberate smile. "You're right," I said. She leaned back, smug, completely unaware that in that single moment, she'd planted something inside me far more dangerous than anger or resolve. Because that was the exact second I decided she'd taken my moment. One day, I'd take something of hers. And I wouldn't need a balloon. I didn't explode. I didn't storm out. I didn't even raise my voice, which is saying something for me, because historically, I've always been the loud one in the family. The one who cries during commercials, laughs too loud at brunch, and slams the cabinet when she's annoyed but doesn't want to say why. But after the bridal shower, I was quiet. Not because I was calm, but because something inside me had gone still in that terrifying way you only understand when you've had someone betray you and smile while they do it. That night, I went home and poured myself a glass of wine I didn't finish. I sat on the couch while my fiancé, Evan, gently asked me how it went. I tried to speak without sounding petty. I told him about the balloon. I told him about the applause. I told him about the moment during dessert when Lauren leaned in and said what she said, like the whole world had just agreed with her, like my bridal shower was a footnote in her pregnancy story. Evan listened. He really did. He rubbed my leg and nodded, and said all the right words, "That sucks," and "She should have checked with you first," and "Your mom must have been pissed too." But the moment I mentioned that no one said anything, that everyone clapped and cooed and treated her like she was the one in white, he paused. "She's pregnant," he said, and I swear to God, I almost threw my glass. Not at him, but at the space between us. The air. The words. Because that sentence, that one sentence, was the beginning of a long and steady pattern I wasn't prepared for. "She's pregnant," my mom said when I called her the next morning. I didn't even bring up the balloon at first. I just asked her what she thought of the shower, and she said, "It was beautiful." And wasn't it sweet of Lauren to share that moment with us? I didn't have to say anything after that. My silence was enough for her to jump in with the rest. "Cassie, don't do this. She's hormonal. She's excited. Just let it go." I told Jamie, too, my maid of honor, my best friend since college. She was the only one who got angry on my behalf. "She hijacked your moment," Jamie snapped, "and you let her. But that doesn't mean you should let it go now. You want me to say something to her?" And for a second, I did. I wanted someone to yell at Lauren, to tell her how self-absorbed she looked, how cruel that little whisper was. But I didn't ask Jamie to do it. I told her it was fine. I said the words even though they tasted like rust in my mouth. The thing is, Lauren didn't just steal the spotlight, she posted about it too. Less than 24 hours after the shower, a video showed up on Facebook. A shaky, vertical clip of her walking into my shower with that damn balloon, everyone clapping, people cheering, Aunt Marcy saying, "Oh my God, a girl." Yay! Not a single shot of me unwrapping gifts. Not a photo of the cake or the games or the group shot Jamie worked so hard to stage. Just Lauren and her bump, edited with sparkles and a soft pink filter, set to some sappy Taylor Swift song. And the caption? "Baby girl already so loved. Showered in joy at Auntie Cassie's bridal party." Not even my bridal shower. Auntie Cassie's. Like I was just the set decoration. I scrolled the comments, heart sinking with every "so beautiful" and "Lauren, you glow." Dozens of shares. Dozens more likes. The damn thing ended up in 2 local mom groups. People I didn't even know messaged me to say congratulations, assuming it had been a combined event. And then I noticed something else. Something colder. My RSVP list had started shrinking. We had 58 confirmed guests for the shower. Lauren brought 35 pink balloons, which was 55% of the total. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense, does it? 35 out of 58 is actually. I don't know, but definitely not 55. See? I can't even think straight. The point is, she overwhelmed the whole place with pink, and now people were acting like the wedding itself was an afterthought. By the end of that week, we were down to 46 confirmed wedding guests. I reached out to a few cousins, some of Lauren's friends who were also invited, and they all gave polite excuses, scheduling conflicts, travel issues. One of them blamed a sprained knee, whatever that even means. But the worst came on Saturday, When I called Aunt Sandra to check in and she said, "Oh honey, didn't you hear? We're going to Lauren's baby shower instead. It's on the same weekend as your wedding, isn't it?" I stood there, phone to my ear, mouth open, but no words came out. "Oh," I finally said. "Didn't realize it was the same day." "Yeah," she replied with a tone that was somehow both apologetic and dismissive. "We figured we'd already celebrated with you at the shower." That's when it hit me. Hard and clean like a slap. The baby shower wasn't just stealing my thunder, it was replacing it. People had picked sides. People were treating Lauren's pregnancy like the main event, and my wedding? Just a nice little appetizer they could skip without guilt. I hung up and stared at the wall for what felt like an hour. They weren't even pretending anymore. And the part that burned the most? My own mother hadn't said a word about it. I wasn't planning to change the date at first. I really wasn't. I had accepted that some people were going to treat my wedding like a footnote, and I figured I'd make peace with it the same way you make peace with a loose tooth. You ignore it until it falls out. But after that phone call with Aunt Sandra, after hearing her say with a straight face that celebrating my bridal shower counted as enough wedding support, something inside me shifted for good. It was like the ground under me finally gave way, and I realized I'd been standing on eggshells all along. Evan saw it in me right away. He didn't even wait for me to bring it up. The next evening, while we were eating leftover pasta on the couch and watching a documentary we weren't really watching, he paused the TV, looked over at me, and said, "What if we move it up? Just a couple of weeks earlier. Smaller group. Just the people who actually care." He said it gently, like he didn't want to push too hard, but I could tell he meant it. And that's what made me finally let the idea in. So we did it. We picked a date 2 weeks earlier, close enough that we wouldn't lose the venue deposit, but early enough that it would no longer compete with Lauren's baby shower circus. We made the guest list tighter. 40 people. People who replied on time, people who checked in, people who asked me how I was doing instead of how far along Lauren was or what name she was thinking about for the baby. But it wasn't just the date that changed. I was done pretending to be polite. I was done swallowing the little jabs and calling them misunderstandings. I was done waiting for someone to finally say, "Cassie, you were right, she stole your moment, and you deserve better." I wasn't going to get that. What I was going to get was one chance to take back control of the narrative. So I took it. Instead of sending out traditional paper invites, which always get lost or thrown away anyway, I made digital ones. Sleek, simple, classy. White background, gold border, soft script text. And right there in the corner, a tiny little icon of a baby wrapped in a blanket, with a red circle and line drawn through it, like a no-smoking sign. Just a joke, obviously. A little wink for the people who knew. But the real heat was in the RSVP page. At the bottom, in clean, black, non-negotiable font, it said, "Due to previous disruptions, this event will not include any personal announcements unrelated to the bride and groom. Thank you for understanding." I hit send on the invites that night and slept better than I had in weeks. It didn't take long. 16 missed calls. All from Lauren. No voicemails. Not even a single breathy rant I could replay later for entertainment. Just call after call after call, like she thought I'd eventually give in and answer, like the sound of her name on my phone would break me the way it used to when we were kids, and she made me feel small without even trying. She didn't leave voicemails, but she did send one text. Just one. "You're actually disgusting." Not a word more. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because there's something so much more powerful in silence. Silence has weight. Silence echoes in the mind of the person who's used to controlling the story. And Lauren was absolutely used to controlling the story. The next morning, the silence was broken, but not by her. It was an email from our mom, not a call, not a face-to-face. Just an email, which was already a bad sign, because Mom only switches to email when she's trying to make her guilt look polite. The subject line read, "Need to talk about the wedding site." And the body of the message went like this: "Cassie, Please consider removing the note at the bottom of the RSVP page. It's unnecessarily hurtful and is only making Lauren feel more isolated. You know she's emotional right now. She's already hurt enough. If this doesn't get taken down, she won't feel comfortable attending the wedding at all. I didn't even have to think about it. I stared at the email for a few seconds, heart not racing, hands steady. And then I hit delete. Not reply. Not archive. Just delete. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just smiled. It wasn't a big grin. It wasn't a laugh. It was the kind of smile you give yourself in a mirror after realizing you no longer need anyone's permission to be angry. The kind that says, okay, we're doing it my way now. And it was in that moment that I knew I wasn't losing control of anything. Lauren had just lost her grip. And I hadn't even raised my voice. I woke up the morning of my wedding with the kind of clarity I imagine people feel before jumping out of a plane, nervous, but sure, steady in the way that only comes when you've already been through the worst and decided to do it anyway. The sun came up in perfect streaks across our bedroom window, and I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, barefoot, staring at my dress hanging quietly in the corner like it knew something I didn't. There was peace in that room, real peace, and I think part of me knew right then that this day was finally going to be mine. Evan was already gone, off to the venue to meet the guys and start the day. Jamie was on her way over with a Starbucks order and the exact same playlist we'd used during college road trips, because she knew exactly how to anchor me when everything else felt like it might float away. I should have been stressed. I should have been obsessing over the guest count or whether the flowers matched the table linens, but instead, I just stood there in the mirror, touching my collarbone, breathing slowly and thinking, they're not coming. I didn't mean Evan's family, who had driven in from 3 states away, or Jamie's boyfriend who'd been stuck in traffic since dawn. I meant them. I meant Lauren. I meant Mom. I meant the whole damn section of our family tree that had quietly rerouted their loyalties the moment a pink balloon floated into my shower like it was the second coming of Christ. I could feel it in my gut, they wouldn't be there. And instead of breaking my heart, it made me feel lighter. Lighter than I had in months. The wedding itself was perfect in all the ways that matter. It wasn't the size I'd once dreamed of, but the people who showed up for me, not because it was convenient or because they felt obligated. Every eye was on us when I walked down the aisle, and I saw no glances toward the back row, no whispers, no sidelong glances wondering if my sister might burst in with another announcement or waddling entrance. It was just me. And Evan. And the people who had stayed. Jamie cried during her speech, and I laughed so hard I had to dab my lipstick back on afterward. My dad danced with me too, isn't she lovely? And halfway through he whispered, this is how it should have been all along, and I knew exactly what he meant. There were no side conversations about due dates, no well-meaning questions about nursery colors, no sympathetic nods toward a woman whose presence would have made everything feel fragile again. She wasn't there. And for the first time in a long time, that was the gift. But weddings end. Even perfect ones. 2 weeks later, I got the invitation. Lauren's baby shower. Hosted by Mom. A pink celebration for the most glowing mama-to-be, the invitation read in cursive font, as if none of the last few months had happened. As if silence equaled peace. As if pretending we hadn't been gutting each other quietly in email threads and text messages made everything whole again. I didn't RSVP. I didn't text. I didn't call to say I was coming. I just showed up, dressed in white. Not bridal white, not lace and satin and train, but simple white linen, clean and sharp and deliberate. I walked into that room like someone entering a museum, quiet, slow, watching. People stopped talking. No one expected me. Some didn't even recognize me at first. My hair was pulled back, my face calm, not a hint of panic or confrontation. Just me, walking across the living room toward Lauren, who was standing by a table full of baby gifts and pink cupcakes shaped like rattles. I handed her a box. Small, neatly wrapped. No tag. She looked at it like it was radioactive. I said, "It's just a thank you." She didn't respond. Not verbally. Her jaw clenched, but she opened it, slow and cautious, like I might have put a trap inside. And in a way, maybe I did. Inside the box was a single photo, 5x7, framed in soft silver. It was me and Evan on our wedding day, under the lights, laughing like we'd just stolen the moon. Tucked into the frame was a card. It read, "Thanks for sitting this one out. We finally had peace." Lauren didn't say a word. She stared at it, then stared at me. And then she threw the box across the room, hard enough that the photo hit the wall and clattered to the floor, landing near the feet of some second cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. No one knew what to do. The room froze. Even the baby-themed Spotify playlist stuttered in the background, as if the Bluetooth couldn't handle the tension. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I turned, walked out, and didn't look back. But I heard the murmurs start before the front door closed behind me. That night, the baby shower video disappeared from Facebook within hours. A short clip had made its way onto TikTok, just 3 seconds of Lauren's red face, the sound of something breaking, and someone gasping off camera. It had already been downloaded, already been shared. The comments weren't kind, and people were asking the only question that mattered anymore. Why is the pregnant lady freaking out over a photo? There are moments in life when you realize you're finally free from the noise that used to rattle inside your head like loose change in a dryer, and the morning of my wedding was one of those moments, still and startling. Like standing in fresh snow before the world wakes up. No frantic energy, no spinning thoughts, no aching second guesses, just a cool quiet inside me that felt more honest than anything I'd experienced in months. I stood in my kitchen drinking coffee from a chipped mug, watching dust dance in the sunbeams like everything in the world had momentarily agreed to slow down for me. Evan was already gone by then, off to the venue with his brother and his best man, all of them armed with ties they didn't know how to tie, and that slow-moving joy men carry when they're not the center of attention but know they're part of something important. Jamie showed up half an hour later, bursting through the front door with a bag of breakfast sandwiches, 2 cold brew coffees, and a portable speaker already playing our road trip playlist from 6 years ago. Like she could read the silence on my face and knew exactly how to fill it. No one said Lauren's name. Not Jamie, not my dad when he came by with my shoes, not my cousin Jess when she FaceTimed to say good luck and we're already at the hotel bar. They all knew. The family group chat had gone quiet days earlier. My mother hadn't replied to a single message. And by then, the silence had spoken volumes. Lauren wasn't coming. And neither was she. For a moment, I thought that would hurt more. I thought I'd stand in front of the mirror in my wedding dress and feel the absence like a physical thing, like a hand pressing against my ribcage. But instead, I looked at my reflection, at the subtle makeup Jamie had applied with gentle hands, at the neckline I'd chosen months ago, at the calm behind my eyes, and I felt only one thing: relief. Pure, unfiltered relief. No anxiety about what announcement might be made during the toast. No possibility of a dramatic entrance halfway through the vows. No pink balloons. No stolen thunder. No sabotage disguised as celebration. The ceremony was held at a small vineyard just outside of town, tucked behind rows of grapevines that glowed gold under the late afternoon sun. My dad walked me down the aisle to a piano version of Here Comes the Sun, and every step felt like a release, like I was shedding all the passive-aggressive tension that had been clinging to me for months. Evan's face when he saw me was everything I had hoped it would be: genuine, overwhelmed, and maybe even a little stunned, the way a man should look when he sees the woman he's about to marry. The vows were ours, handwritten and honest, with enough laughter to balance the tears. Jamie cried through the whole thing, dabbing her eyes and mouthing, "Oh my God," every time Evan said something particularly sweet. My cousin Jess took a million photos. The food was perfect, the dancing felt earned, and even when my heel broke during the 3rd song, I laughed instead of cursed. It was a day that belonged to me, truly and completely, and for the first time since the bridal shower, I wasn't sharing it with a shadow. 2 weeks later, the invitation came, not mailed, but hand-delivered through Jamie, who had stopped by my office on a Tuesday afternoon with a look that already said, "This isn't going to be normal." She handed me a pale pink envelope with tiny gold footprints on the seal, and I knew what it was before I even opened it. "Lauren's baby shower," Jamie said, already pulling the top off her cold brew. "Hosted by your mom. At the country club, no less." There was no RSVP card. Just a date. Just a time. Just an unspoken expectation that I'd show up and smile and pretend the last 3 months hadn't happened. So I showed up. But I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I didn't even sit. I walked in 20 minutes after the start time, just as the mimosas were being served and the sugar cookies shaped like rattles were being passed around. I wore a white linen dress, nothing fancy but unmistakable, the same shade as the one I wore on my wedding day, and when I walked through the doors, I swear the entire room inhaled at once. It was like someone had pressed pause on the soundtrack of their perfect afternoon. Lauren was standing at the front of the room by the gift table, glowing, surrounded by pink tissue paper and small towers of diapers stacked like wedding cakes. Our mother stood beside her, clapping politely, her expression a little too tight to be comfortable. And then she saw me. They both did. I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked across the room, quiet as snowfall, heels tapping on the hardwood, and handed Lauren a box. Wrapped in silver paper. No tag. No bow. Just clean, sharp lines and the weight of something unspoken. She took it with both hands, the way you take something you don't trust. She opened it slowly, careful fingers peeling back the paper like she expected something venomous inside. And when she saw what it was, just a photo, framed, 5 by 7, me and Evan standing under the lights on our wedding night, laughing with our foreheads touching, her face went white. Then red. Tucked behind the photo was a note. It said, "Thanks for sitting this one out. We finally had peace." She threw it. Hard. The box hit the wall behind her and slid to the ground, scattering tissue paper and sending the frame spinning across the floor until it landed face up near the punch bowl. No one spoke. No one moved. The baby shower video disappeared from Facebook within the hour. But the TikTok clip, just 3 seconds of her face twisted in rage, one broken sentence, and the sound of something hitting the wall, was already making the rounds by nightfall. And all anyone online wanted to know was the same thing. Why is the pregnant lady freaking out over a photo? The days after the baby shower incident passed like fog rolling across a cold field, slow, heavy, and without clear shape. There wasn't an explosion. Not really. No screaming phone calls, no social media war, no dramatic scene outside my house with mom crying and Lauren yelling through my screen door. It was worse than that, actually. It was quiet. A silence too sharp to be mistaken for peace, the kind of quiet that settles in when everyone's decided you're the villain, but no one wants to say it to your face. My phone didn't buzz for days. No messages from mom, no awkward attempts from cousins who once swore we were close, no apologies, no invitations to explain myself. I was uninvited without being told, deleted without the courtesy of a backspace. I don't even know how many people saw the TikTok video, but enough of them left comments to keep it alive for a week. Why is she so angry over a picture? It's giving main character energy, except it's not her baby. That sister was just trying to keep the peace. Over and over, strangers who didn't know anything about me, or the months of build-up, the whispers, the cake, the pink balloons, the damn gender reveal, decided in one 3-second clip who I was. I told myself I didn't care. I repeated it like a mantra. I said it every morning as I put on my makeup, every time I saw Lauren's name still stored in my phone, untouched, still under low nail polish, because I hadn't changed it and I wasn't going to give her that much space in my head. But there's a difference between saying you're fine and actually being fine. And at night, when the world was quiet and Evan had already fallen asleep beside me, That's when it crawled in, the question I didn't want to face. Did I go too far? It stayed with me like a low fever. Even as I watched my wedding video for the third time, even as I flipped through our album and reminded myself how happy I looked, how light I felt without Lauren there. Even as Mom sent a weak, half-hearted email asking if we could have coffee and maybe start fresh, something kept picking at me like a loose thread I couldn't stop pulling. And then came the text. It arrived just after midnight on a Tuesday. I had been brushing my teeth, about to climb into bed when my phone buzzed once, just once, and there it was. A message from Lauren, the first contact I'd had from her in weeks. "You'll regret this when she's born." 8 words. That's it. I stood there, toothbrush still foaming in my mouth, just staring at the screen like it was a warning from the future. Not a threat, not quite. But not neutral either. Something about it felt heavy, felt loaded, like she knew something I didn't and wanted me to feel it twisting before it ever arrived. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I didn't even tell Evan right away. I just let it sit there, glowing softly in my inbox like a nightlight in a room you haven't entered in years. The months passed, and we didn't speak. I didn't reach out. She didn't follow up. Mom tried a few more times to drag us into the same room, once for Easter brunch, once for our aunt's birthday, but I declined both. I wasn't going to sit in a room full of people who looked through me, who smiled with lips pressed too tightly, who said things like "family's everything," while letting one person suck all the air from the table. Then came the first birthday. I hadn't planned to go. I really hadn't. I told Jamie I was skipping it, told Evan I had a headache that day and that I needed space from all of it. But on the actual morning, I found myself staring at my closet, pulling out a soft blue blouse I hadn't worn since my own bridal shower. I drove across town with the windows down, not thinking, not planning, just moving like someone under a spell. When I arrived, no one greeted me. No one rushed to hug me, to say they were glad I came. My mother saw me. She nodded. That was it. The party was predictably pink, streamers, cupcakes, a glittery high chair set up like a throne. Balloons shaped like the number 1 floated above the fireplace. Lauren didn't look surprised to see me. She looked unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just watched me from across the room, then turned back toward her friends. No one said my name the whole time I was there. No one asked how I was. No one offered me cake. And still, I stayed. I stood by the corner of the room, near the gift table, watching as people clapped and took pictures and passed the baby around like a prize. I hadn't seen her since the hospital photos Mom sent, the ones I didn't comment on, the ones I deleted out of anger but still remember with disturbing clarity. She looked different in person. Softer, rounder, more real. A tiny person, not just a symbol of everything that went wrong. And then, for a brief moment, she turned her head toward me. Our eyes met. She smiled. Not because she knew me, not because of anything I'd done or hadn't done, but that baby, that little girl, smiled right at me like I was someone who mattered. And something cracked. Not a full break. Not forgiveness. Just a flicker. A warmth I didn't ask for. I left without saying goodbye. I walked to my car with that smile burning in my chest, like a secret I didn't know what to do with. And that night, when I climbed into bed next to Evan, I told him everything. The text, the party, the baby's smile. He listened the way he always did, quiet, patient, strong enough to hold space for things I didn't have the courage to name. And after I finished, I said what had been sitting in the back of my throat for months. I don't know if I did the right thing. He didn't answer. Because honestly, there wasn't one. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes the silence we choose echoes louder than the words we want to scream. I don't know if I won. I don't even know if I'm proud. But I do know this. Revenge doesn't end the story. It just rewrites the last chapter.